Hi, Lena. How are you today?
Hi. Oh my gosh, so much eye candy behind you.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of it ties into Disney, I guess. There's some Nightmare Before Christmas stuff
Let's
behind there and
go.
some Funko Pops. You got to be tired. You've been doing this since this morning. I was on that press conference this morning.
Yeah, this is a first for me. I don't know how people do this.
Before we jump into the actual film itself, I did want to ask you what made you want to go into directing or filmmaking?
I was always making films and creative things and stuff, but I mean, I went to UCLA and I entered in the engineering school. And then I did my bachelor's first in poli sci and history. So I think I wanted to teach. And I was like, man, why don't people know about things in this world? Let me try teaching. And then pretty soon I was like, man, why does anybody listen to teachers? I think they learn more from like entertainment. And so somehow I think there was some sort of blend of messages and things from people. They're like, well, why don't you merge your interests? So then I applied to the film school and kind of took it from there.
Your career started out in short films, and then you did one feature film, and then you did a short documentary. But now this is like a whole different ball game because it's a Disney film. Had a pretty, I'm guessing, a pretty sizable budget behind it. What was it like going through those stages of your career?
It was a crazy jump. It was the same in some ways and it was different in some ways. I mean, it was the same because it was it's a healthy Disney budget. It's a healthy budget, but in Disney, where they're doing movies that are like 100 to 120 million dollars, they consider this the low budget category, even though it's like a very big budget. And so I guess a lot of the stuff that we were trying to do was technically ambitious for its budget because it had kids and it had a whole bunch of CGI, and it had stunts and all that sort of stuff. So it felt like the same sort of like battle every day when you're going to set and like figuring out how to get it done, all those sorts of things. And I think especially because my producer Gil Netter has that same spirit. I think we sort of had the independent film mindset where it's like it really is a passion project. Like me, Gil, Brad Copeland, the writer, we adored this project. I think we put everything of our souls into it for 2 years. Like I've never seen a team fight for. So that was similar. On the not similar end, it was like obviously it's like huge and so amazing and crazy. I was like, oh my god, we have like giant cranes and we have like people like doing stunts off of roofs and there's a car crash and like another unit. I was like, whoever gets another unit, and so that was all amazing. And they like I had Andrew Dunn as my DP, and he'd like shot like these big movies. I'm like, what is happening? And he's also like several decades older than me. But then there's also it was a new thing to like deal with the studio system, and you're not the final boss of things anymore. And so it was kind of a learning curve with that, which ultimately ended up being good because there was a lot of fighting and debating with the studio. They were supportive, but it just kind of like challenged you to stick to your vision, but come up with something that was so strong that they're like, okay, that wins.
Yeah, it's an interesting transition from independent film to big budget movies. I've actually heard a lot of stories from directors and who have said that the process has not always been so smooth. So I'm glad you had a positive experience with it.
When you look back at everything, it's like, well, if it worked out at the end, but there's a lot of fighting.
I wanted to know how did you find Matilda? I think she's terrific in the movie. She really lights up the screen.
So much of that credit goes to our casting director, Emily Schwaber. She was actually my casting director for The Tiger Hunter, and she
Oh,
stepped up to this challenge. It's one of the bigger movies she had done, and I don't know how she found her because it took more than 1,000 girls, and she was combing through like everything. Like she was going to schools, she was doing so many things, and finally found her because we needed somebody who was like who you could buy that she's saying like the sarcastic dialogue and that she's saying like that she would even say a word like cynic or like have enough of a maturity to have a defense mechanism like that, and then also that she would be like vulnerable. So she was, and it could do comedy. So she was the only one who fit those boxes, and I was like, there can be nobody else in this role.
a lot of people don't talk about this, but finding the right child actor for movies is a big deal. There's some kids who just have it, and then there's other kids who you like kind of watch it and they like destroy the entire movie because they're not strong.
Yeah, I mean that was one of our first points of like dealing with the studio system because there was in the studio system they ask you to submit a few girls, like because they want to have like a choice in it. So and I was telling my producer, I was like, I can't submit three people, like I only have one. He's like, you have to. And so I'm submitting three, and I'm just like sweating like all night. I'm like, oh my god, what if they like the other girls who are more like traditional cutesy? And my producer's like, they're gonna pick the cutesy girls. Like I would pick I was like, no, no, you guys aren't seeing the movie. Like it does not work that way. This is not a sitcom. You can't have this cute girl saying dialogue that's too big for her britches, and all the adults are like, oh, how cute, you know. And so it was like a big thing. And Sean Bailey called me at the end, and he's like, okay, who do you think? I was like, I can't see this movie without Matilda, and he fought for her too, and so that worked out.
This is actually another casting question. I love how you put comedic actors in this film, but comedic actors that are not known for doing family-friendly projects. Was it hard to kind of like pull them back from doing like adults, like comedic things?
We have a bunch of takes where they are doing adult things. At least when there was not a child.
Can we see that version too? Can we get the R-rated version as well?
I know, right? I think my editor has it. But I think, to their credit, I actually think it's one of the most amazing things that, for instance, Ben does. Like his long form improv specials are actually generally pretty clean. And I think your comedy just has to be that good if first you can still make it funny while being fairly clean. I don't know how he does it. And so they were able to channel it for here. They got it. They just got a little bit more creative, got a little bit more playful.
That's kind of like what John Mulaney does, right? Like he's kind of a clean comedian. Jim Gaffigan's another clean comedian.
Yeah, because I know Ben doesn't have a reason where he stays clean. He just is able to make things kind of like playful and witty.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you did a great job with the casting of everyone in the film, and I thought they all played off each other very well. Of course, I love Danny Pudi from Community, as I'm sure you've heard many times today. He's just so funny, and I'm enjoying seeing him pop up in different TV shows and movies and whatnot. What makes him so special to work with? Because I know you worked with him before.
Yeah, because Danny Pudi can do anything. He has his comic sensibilities are genius. He'll always give you something different. I have 20 different takes that I could have used for all of his performances. And if you want him to do soul, he'll do soul. If you want him to do something, scary, he'll do that. Like he just gets it. He's really smart and really inspired, and I would put him in anything.
Based on this morning, it seems like he would do anything you want him to do. So go for it.
There we go. We've got it.
So I want to ask a few technical questions, and I thought this was very interesting. So combining the animation with live action, and I'm not talking about CGI, I'm talking about the actual like comic book sketches. Okay. How do you do that as a director?
You're talking about like the motion graphic sequences, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was first kind of, we just do the traditional storyboard, like the story that I wanted to tell. I'm like, what's fitting for coming from like this little girl's mind who her life philosophy is informed by comic books. Okay, and then now what's the actual story? So then what's the story she wants to tell? How would she do it in her comic book way? And then we worked with a very cool motion graphics company, and they figured out a way to kind of give it that sort of like gravitas and the movement to kind of make it just keep it a little cooler, because I didn't want anything in the movie to be cute.
Speaking of cute, everyone of course loves the squirrel. Squirrel's great, wonderful. Everyone loves it. I wanted to ask, though, not about bringing the squirrel to life, but rather the scenes that involve the physical humor with the squirrel and having the actors actually act against the squirrel. What was the most difficult of those scenes to shoot?
The difficult ones is usually when it's tricky when it was like a long scene, like when Flora is in her bedroom and Ulysses keeps doing different things. Like he's trying to like lift up, and like he's trying to fly, and then he flops onto his belly, or the can you talk sequence, because there's just so much back and forth. Like that whole scene is literally just her and a squirrel. And the whole scene she did had no squirrel. And and I couldn't be in there to puppet it either. So it was a lot of me using a puppet and doing the scene with her as a puppet. And we did so many times until she kind of got it into her memory. And then she would have to do the whole thing herself. And so that was a little tricky. But sometimes, so we'd have to like drop something from the air to show the depressions in the bed, because that's harder for the CGI to do. And so there'd be those little things that are happening, and she'd have to keep her focus while those random stuff's happening. Like we're throwing some cheese dust or something at her.
Oh, wow. No, it's very interesting. That aspect of filmmaking always like intrigues me the most, because it's kind of like you have to act along like nothing against nothing.
Mhm.
So you pulled it off so flawlessly with this movie. Congratulations.
No, thank you. I mean, a lot of it, Matilda, I can't imagine another kid doing it. Like, 'cause there's a lot, like, even when she had memorized everything, there's small details that you don't realize. Like, even if when she remembered where things are, generally a kid, and she had to learn not to do this, but she learned quicker than probably most. Like, when you're looking at an object like a stuffy, your eyes fixate. But when you're actually talking to like an animal in your hand, your eyes sort of like they go to different areas. Sometimes you'll notice his whiskers, sometimes you'll notice his things. So she had to train herself to start looking at the areas she's looking with that aliveness that you would if it was a real creature, which takes a lot of doing.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Well, they're telling me to wrap, but thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Oh, no, thank you. It's great.
Hey, I'll talk to you soon. Congratulations, and hopefully I'll see you on a future project very, very shortly.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Bye bye.